Okay.
Looking at various things like the commercial paper, money market, revolving credit facilities. Basically, we were talking about all kinds of debt facilities that is available to a company. But in addition to that, there are few other sources of debt finance which I want to discuss with you, still available for a company, right? So first of all, let's look at the type of finance that is available. So one type of finance available for any company is your retained funds, retained earnings. That is, you have earned a profit, you have not distributed that profit, and that is inside the company, which is available for investment. Retained earnings. So that's one. Then another way a company can raise money is what we call sale and lease back. Now this is generally available for companies who are holding big properties. So you generally sell the property, but you don't vacate the premises. The owner will lease it out back to you. So you have the money, you have the property. Only thing is you don't have the ownership. You have still the occupation. So this is a good form of finance. If you find that you have lot of properties, particularly in these large companies, the Marks and Spencer did this very well. They are high street properties. They sold it and they got it on a lease back from the owners. Maybe at a bank you can sell it and they will lease it back to you, or maybe you will sell it to some total outsider and lease it back to you. So that's another kind of finance, but you have to see your statement of financial position and see whether you have enough property on that nature. So not that every company will have that one, but wherever you have it, you are probably able to use it. So these are good sources of financing, particularly when you are the strategic case study, but even in the objective case. The grants, mostly the government or local community, local government might give you grants, particularly if you are going to develop a particular industry or maybe in a particular area, underdeveloped area where the government wants to create some employment. If you go and start a business in one of those areas, you will be given a grant like. So the advantage of the grants is you don't have to repay back.
Come on, can I just ask you a quick question, please?
Sure.
You know about sales and lease back?
Okay.
Will there be, in the OT question, would there actually be any workings for those? So would you have to actually work that out?
Very unlikely, but you can have a working like this. They might give you a statement of financial position, and they might say that you have so much of property and that you want to dispose that kind of a property, and with that a kind of financing available. But unlikely they can give you a question on a working.
Okay.
Yeah, working can come up in a big question. If they're given all the balance sheets and everything that you have sold the property and that it is going to come out on a leasing, the minimum lease rent that you should pay. So that is the present value of all what you are going to get it like. That kind of a question can come up, but very unlikely that it will come up in the small objective test questions. But anyway, it's a good question you asked me. I'll keep that in my mind, and I will see whether we can think of even a small question to get that idea. Because I remember the big questions, there were questions. What is the minimum lease rental you should be paying? So it should be equivalent to your present value of what you can get it today.
Okay.
So let's look at. Yeah. So the grants are basically the advantages. You don't need to pay grants. So mostly the governments get grants. Now the institutions like the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, particularly for some of these developing countries, they give financing. They give part of the finance in form of loans, part of the finance in form of grants. So actually when I was in the Water Board of Sri Lanka, I used to negotiate a lot of these facilities. I prefer as much as possible to take it as grants, because grants you don't need to repay. You have no need to pay you interest. So that's actually a zero cost funding. You don't need to pay anything. But there may be certain other conditions attached, like you have to give so many employment to so many people. you have to be in this kind of industry, this, that, and the other. Then debts with warranty attached. So we are going to look at some of these things in detail a little bit in a moment. Convertible debt, venture capital, business angels, government assistance, leasing. So these are the type of finance that you will probably have in the world when you go for financing. Right? So let's look at each of these items separately and try to understand as much as possible. So, yeah. So the first kind of earnings is what we call the one of the finance what we have is retained earning. Now, sorry, retained earning. So retained earnings, what is the problem there? Retained earnings. Now a company, if you look at the statement of financial position, you might find lot of retained earnings. But if you look at your cash balance, it may not be in cash form. Can you explain that one? In the statement of financial position, just under share capital, you have retained earnings, a huge amount. But if you look at the cash flow or the other side, assets, cash and cash equivalents, you don't have that money. Can it be? Can it be? Retained earnings in one side, but not represented by cash on the other side. If you look at most of the balance sheets, that will be the scenario.
Retained earnings is from the yeah, but retained earnings is from the previous years.
Yeah, you're right.
So it wouldn't be, so it wouldn't be in the cash flow statement.
Yeah, no, I mean, not in the cash flow statement. I'm talking about the statement of financial position.
Yeah.
But it's basically right because, you know, even though you have retained earnings in the last year, you would have invested that money last year. The previous also you have invested. So even though it's retained earnings in the liability side, but it is not represented by cash, right? It is already invested. So it is no longer there. So the point that I'm trying to drive in is just because you have retained earnings, it does not mean that you will have cash. The retained earnings you would have invested already. So that is what we call retained earnings. So it need not be necessarily in cash. Already invested. It may be invested in property, plant and equipment. It may be invested in things like inventory or receivables for that matter. So just because you have retained earnings, it does not mean. But what you have to look at is in the statement of financial position under current assets, how much cash you have. How much cash you have. If you have cash and that cash, if it is not necessary for any other things, you can invest it in property, plant and equipment. So normally we keep cash for some reasons, couple of reasons. I think I shared this with you. We keep the cash for 3 reasons. Remember? Transactions motive. To do transactions, you need cash, number 1. Then we keep cash for an emergency, what we call precautionary motive. So, right, for an emergency, we need some money. So we don't put every money, every dollar, every sterling in investment. We keep little bit of money for future, for an emergency, like that is what we call precautionary motive. Then we keep money, part of the money for a speculative motive. That is, you have some money, you find certain raw materials going up in price, or you find some property coming up at a cheaper price. If you have money, you can invest it, buy it. So we keep the money for 3 reasons: transactions motive, precautionary motive, and speculative.
Speculative,
yeah. Having kept enough money for that one, if we have still excess money, we can invest it in new investment projects. Property, plant and equipment or working capital or new projects, we can invest it. If you don't have any of those investment propositions, then like last time what we discussed, we should be giving those as dividends. Give it as a dividend, declare it as a dividend, or you can buy your own shares. You are not supposed to have lot of money inside your balance sheet, because having too much of money basically makes you a target for a takeover, particularly a listed company. So retained earnings is a source of finance available, but may not be really all the time. So then the next source of finance is what we just now discussed, sale and lease back. You sell your assets, high quality assets, and then like high street buildings, and then you lease it back on long term years, long leases, 25 years, 30 years, you will lease it back. So you have the money, you have the property, and only very few people will know that you have sold the property because you are still occupying, so your business is not disrupted. So it's a good way to raise money without too much of a difficulty. Only thing is, later on you have additional outflows coming up. So if you really want to know, again, some lender might come and say, okay, I will give you some money, but you have to pay me 50,000 sterling pounds as a rent or a lease rent per month, and maybe for 20 years. So you may want to work out 50,000 per month, that is 600,000 per year. 20 years, you may want to work it out at a particular discounting rate, your cost of capital rate. Take the present value of all that money. So for example, if you are paying 600,000 for a year, right, and say 600,000 you are paying for a particular year, and let's assume that your cost of capital is 10%, right? So 600,000 you have to pay year 1, 600,000 year 2, 600,000 year 3, like that you will pay. So you can look at the present value of all this money, and if your cost of capital is 10%, you can apply the discounting table, or since it is 20 years the same figure, you can apply the cumulative 10% rate for 20 years, and you can find out the present value of all that money, what you are paying. So let's assume that it is going to be something like 8 million, and that is the amount that you should take as a sale price, because later on you are going to pay 600, the present value was that one. So if you are selling the property today, you should be selling it at least for 8 million. The present value of all what you are going to pay later. At least that must be the money. If you are going to get 7 million, not good enough, because 7 million is your inflow, but your outflow is 8 million. So it's going to be a minus NPV. Right? It's going to be a minus NPV. So that may be a calculation. That may be a calculation that may come out. Right? You're paying, you have been asked to pay a lease rent of so much, and asking you for the loan that you should be requesting the bank if the cost of capital is something 20% or 10%. So that kind of a question is possible, Majid. So when you are looking at questions, we will try to work out some of these questions.
Okay.
Another possible thing I can imagine, another possible thing is they will say, I can remember in one of the case studies, I think it came up, you can take 8 million today, for example. You can take 8 million today. How much rent, how much lease rent you should pay every year? So you are working the reverse side of it. So let's look at some of these questions. I think it's a good thing you asked me. I will try to work out some questions on this area, even though the big questions may not come, short questions is possible. Right. So that's what we call lease and thing. So this can be only done provided you have big properties. You have some high value properties. Otherwise, you can't do that one. So if you are a consultancy firm, a kind of a firm, don't suggest this as a form of finance because you don't have property. Then the grants. So the grants, as I said, it's more related to technology, right? So now, for example, in India, in certain areas where the technology is not so strong in rural areas, the government is offering, or the state governments are offering certain grants for them to go and set some IT parks, technology parks. So to create some jobs, to make the skills of those people more kind of a thing. In the agricultural areas, they might give you certain concessions. So the advantage is basically you don't need to pay them. So that's only provided by the sources, government, local governments, and bodies like European Union, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, some other Japanese institutions, they give. But remember, these grants, even though it is a grant, it has lot of dirty conditions attached, I would say. Right? The grants won't just come up, but for companies maybe, I don't know. But for the public sector institutions, when the grant comes, it comes up with lot of unfair conditions attached. I know, I mean, I have no disregard, I have no disrespect Japanese, they give lot of grants, but with a condition attached. What is the condition? You have to buy all your machinery products from Japan. So, even though it's a grant, you have to buy it at very high prices. The machines are very high. If you can buy 3 of those machines, Chinese machines, right? So because of that, that's a kind of a bad thing with the grants. So you have to be careful when you take grants that you don't fall into some unwanted traps. Then this is something called debt with warrants attached. Now, this is simply you go to the market, you raise money, right? It's a debt. You want to say raise some money. You want to raise some $1 million. You come to the market and you issue bonds and raise money. But, you know, when you try to raise money, the people may have some kind of a doubt whether your company is going to do well and all that kind of a thing. So you give us some kind of a sugar-coated pill for them, I would say. A sweetener, a sugar-coated pill. You say, okay, you invest 1 million. Today you can invest with 1 million. And I also give you an option. Remember, it is an option. So you have given me a 1 million, right, debt. And you will say also you will give an option for this man, whoever who has invested, to take in another 2 years time or another 5 years time, shall we say 50,000 shares for every 1 million, 50,000 shares at a predetermined share rate. Predetermined share rate. So maybe 10 or something like that. Right? So at 10 you can buy another 50,000 shares after 3 years. So remember, the debt will remain as it is. I'm explaining this one because next time I'm coming is a convertible debt. But before that, debt will remain as a 1 million. In addition to that, after 3 years, you are given the option to buy 50,000 shares of the company, or the company will grant you 50,000 shares at $10. And let's assume the price on the 3rd year, the share price is 12. 12. So you can pay 500,000 and get 50,000 shares, even though the market price is 12. So at that time, you will have the 1 million debt given to the company, whatever the interest rate, and also you will have 500,000 shares, which you have bought it at a predetermined rate, originally agreed at 10, when the price is 12. If the price is 8, you will not buy it, because the option is yours. The price on the day of after 3 years is 8, you are not going to buy it. But if the price is 12, you will surely buy it because you can buy it at 10. So the holder has the option. Holder has option to buy the shares, or even he can go and sell the shares at that market. So it's a privilege given to you. Now, what is the big advantage for the lender? You are the person who is giving me money. You gave me 1 million. You get the interest. And also, you have the option after 3 years to buy 50,000 shares at the rate of 10. And if the share is 12, you have made a 100,000 gain. So that's a kind of attraction for you, because that will attract you even to invest the 1 million today. Because you know, when you invest 1 million, it's not only the interest you are going to get, you might have an opportunity to get another capital gain. So on this 1 million, they will pay interest, 6% or whatever it is they will pay. But at that point, they might, 10 is the price, you bought it, 12 is the price, the market price. So 50,000 shares, 2 into 50,000, 100,000, you have another additional gain, a capital gain, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. So what is the advantage for the company? Why should they give this kind of a thing? Debts with warranty attached, warrants attached. Why should a company give this kind of a thing? Any idea?
It's a safer option, isn't it?
To whom? To whom?
To the company.
Company.
Yeah.
Company. Why do you say it's a safe option? Yeah, right. Why do you say it's a safe option?
Than going directly to a lender.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a safer option than going directly to a lender.
No, you're going to a lender. You're going into a lender. You are the company, right?
Yeah.
I want money. You are the company. You want some money. You come to me. I lend you 1 million. Once I lend you 1 million, you give me another option, Kumar. After 3 years, I give you option to buy 50,000 shares of my company. I'm going to issue 50,000 shares of your company. So for you get the 1 million, you will get your interest, everything, no problem.
Yeah.
You're going to get. You are the lender, you will get the 1 million, 6% interest. In addition to that, I am telling you, I will give you another 50,000 shares. So the market price is 12. So surely you will buy it. Because we can buy it and sell it. And immediately make 100,000 profit, isn't it?
Yeah.
So definitely it is attraction to you, the lender, right? Because you have nothing to lose about it. If the market price is 8, you will not buy it. If the market price is 12, you will buy it. There is nothing for you to lose. So it's some kind of attraction for you, the lender. But what I'm asking is, why should I, company, give you that kind of attraction? What for?
Not 100% sure.
Yeah, basically, I think it is to attract. I mean, it's basically when you will say, rather than just asking Majed, can you give me 1 million? If I tell Majed, you give me 1 million, also I give you an opportunity to invest in my company because my company is going to do very well, you will be attracted. So it's like a...
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to just say that,
right.
It would just be...
Yeah.
It'd just be a way of making the company a little bit more visibility as well.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's a kind of a sweetener. And with the sweetener, the advantage for the company is, if you were normally paying 7% interest, you may be able to draw money at a cheaper interest rate. Because the investor, the lender, is thinking in terms of the capital gain I can get it later on. So I may give it to you at a cheaper rate. You got the point?
Yeah.
Normally without the sweetener, I would have asked you 7%. But now with the sweetener you are giving me, I will probably give it to you at 6%. So I can borrow money at a cheaper rate when I give you the sweetener. That is what happens. So remember, the debt will remain as a debt and the shares will come as a new share issue. Right? That is what a debt with warrants means. The attraction for the company should be able to borrow at a cheaper coupon rate than otherwise. Attraction for the lender is the lender has the option, if the share price goes up, to get a capital gain. So it's a good way to keep both the sides happy and to get your money back, up front. Right? So the next one we are going to look at is what we call the opposite of this one, convertible debt. I mean, not opposite, another kind of a thing. Here again, what we can say is, it's a similar to the warrant, what we said, but only thing is, you can't have both the debt and the shares, Majid. You can't have both the shares and the same. You originally, you will be issued 1 million. 1 million loan. So you are giving me, my company, a loan of 1 million. At the end of 5 years, maybe, you have the option to convert, not the additional one. You can option to convert this 1 million into shares. So they might say, you can convert into 100,000 shares. Every 1 million can be converted into 100,000 shares, right? So let's assume the market price is 12 on the day. On the day of the transaction, the market price is 12. After 5 years, market price is 12. So if you convert, you will get 1,200,000 worth of wealth. Or you have the option to get your cash back, 1 million. So you can't have both the debt and the loan like in the earlier situation. Here the debt gets converted into a loan. Sorry, the debt gets converted into shares. That is what we call a convertible debt. Debt gets converted into share. So you have to decide. Now if the price is 12, you have given me 1 million. You are given the option to convert it into 100,000 shares. If the price is 12 after 5 years, will you convert it? Will you convert it? After 5 years, the price is 12. You gave me 1 million.
Yeah.
You have the option either to get your 1 million back or to convert it into 100,000 shares. The price on the 5th year is 12. What will you do?
What would the price be initially?
At the time of issue, it could be anything because you did not buy the shares. No, you don't buy the shares at that time. You don't buy the shares at that time.
Yeah, you probably would take it.
You will take it because you have the option either getting 1 million back or getting shares worth 1,200,000. So you will take it. You will convert it.
Yeah.
You will convert it because if you want money, you can sell it and get your money back. But you have an opportunity of gain in a 200,000, a capital gain. If you get the 1 million, you will get only the 1 million. But here, if the share price is 8,
then you wouldn't.
If the share price is 8,
you'd still take it.
Then you don't take. Pardon?
You wouldn't take it.
You won't take it. Because there no, because you have the option, you have the right, you will decide, no, I don't want 8 at 8, I will get my money back. So you are not going to lose any circumstances. You always have a chance to gain something. You will definitely get your 1 million back, but you can convert it into bigger number of value shares. So that is what we call a convertible debt. So what's the difference between a convertible debt and a warrant? Warrant, it is the loan plus shares. Plus shares. Convertible debt, the loan will go off. It is going off and it gets converted into a debt, into a share. So that's the difference between a warrant and a convertible debt. Now, in both cases, the option is with you. So here you will exercise the option if it is more than 12. I mean, if it is 12, you will exercise. Otherwise, you will not exercise. You will allow it to lapse. You will collect your 1 million. Now, obviously, for the lender, there's an advantage, isn't it? There's an advantage because he is not going to lose it. He can either convert it into higher figure or he can get his original money back. What is the advantage to the company? What is the advantage to the company? Now, why should they issue convertible bonds? Right? Now, the moment if you convert it, the moment the lender decides to convert, it becomes a long-term investment. Because equity means it's a long-term investment. So, company by offering that option, company more or less wants you to convert it. That is why the company is offering. So, in other words, the company wants long-term investment. That is, they want it to be converted into equity. Right? They want it to be converted into equity. So, why should the company initially it as a debt and later on allow it to be converted into equity? Why can't they make it straight away a equity share issue? Because the company's intention will be that you will convert it. That is why they are given it. Right? So, why don't they do it today? Why are they waiting for 5 years?
Because initially the lender wouldn't want to just do that.
Yeah, that may be a good reason. The lender may not want you to do it. Lender wants to see it. So it may be a better way to attract him, isn't it? Yeah. It's a better way to attract him. Okay?
You know when you were talking about the the share issue, the shares coming in at 12 pence.
Okay.
And then you were talking about it coming at 8 pence.
Okay.
Why wouldn't they take it at the 8 pence? Could you just explain that, please?
Yeah. It's not shares coming up in the thing. In the market price of the share is 8.
Yeah.
So you can buy, you can convert it. You will get only 800,000 worth of wealth for you.
Yeah, but you'd get your million as well, wouldn't you?
No, you will not get the million. Either the million or shares. In the convertible debt, either the million or the shares. So you will get the.
So then why would you take it at the 12 pence?
Yeah. So at the 12, what is worth more, million or the shares? Either the million or the shares. Now you have given me 1 million.
Okay, yeah, I got you. Sorry, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Either way, it's not both. Either way you will get it. You can get the 1 million back, or you can get the shares. So if it is 12, you will walk in for the shares, because at 12 into 100, 1,200,000. But at 8, why should I convert it? I don't want to convert it. I'll ask for money back. Clear?
Yep, got you, yeah.
Yeah. So the next question what I asked was why the company should be the company's motive is that you will convert it into share. So why don't the company come out straight away as a share issue rather than coming out as a debt and then trying to convert it later? So what you said was probably right, because the shareholders may not have enough confidence, so they want to see. If it is at 12, they will convert it. If it is 8, they will not convert it. So in a way to attract the shareholders, attract the lenders. The other reason is, why are you taking money to these share issues and all that? Why are you taking money? You want to invest in new projects, isn't it?
Yep.
Right. So now if you take money today, for example, Majid, 2015, and if you invest in a new project, that project may take about 5 years for you to earn income, because it is not going to bring income today. Right? You have to put up your buildings, you have to put up your machinery, you have to do your marketing. So maybe when you invest in 2015, you will get returns coming up only starting from 2020. So during this period, no return. Your earnings will not increase. But the number of shares, if you come out with a share issue, number of shares will go up. I'm not talking about a convertible, I'm talking immediate issuing shares. Today you issue shares. So when you issue today shares, no additional income, but number of shares have gone up. So what will happen to your earnings per share? Earnings per share is earnings divided by number of shares.
Yeah, it will go down.
It will go down, which is not a good thing for a company. Right? The directors are very much focused on this earnings per share. So if they come out with a share, so this is the consequence. But 5 years later, this new project is going to earn money. It is going to earn money. So your earnings are going to go up. These earnings are going to go up. And that time if you convert, the number of shares also will go up. So there's a good possibility of earnings per share either going up or at least remaining constant. Got the point? Right? So you don't, that is why most of the companies will prefer a convertible bond. You buy time. You buy time to increase your earnings, because immediately your earnings are not going to increase, and therefore they buy time. They'll wait for it, and then they go for the once the people convert it into shares, it's okay. Your earnings per share will not dilute, will not drop. That's the reason. And the other reason is, now company can think of, they want to raise 1 million. Company can think of raising 1 million in what we call a straight bond. Straight bond is, you take 1 million, you pay interest, whatever the rate, 6%, okay. After 5 years, you return the money back. So only 5 years you want the money, you keep it for 5 years, you do the project over, you return the money and you pay 6% interest. Convertible bond means you take money, You pay interest. After 5 years, this man will have the option to convert it into shares or get his money back. He can convert it into shares or he can get his money back. Right? Now look at from your point of view. You are the lender. You give me 1 million. One option, the straight bond, you get 6% interest, that's all. That's all. And you will get your 1 million back in 5 years time. Second option, you give me 1 million, you get a X% interest, and also you get either 1 million or more, if the share price is more. Now, my question is, this interest, if you are getting 6% on this one, what will be your expectation as interest in a convertible bond? More or less? More or less?
More than the 6%.
More than 6%, you think? Why? Why do you think it should be more than 6%?
Because you've got it guaranteed, the 6%.
Pardon?
The 6% is already guaranteed.
Already 6% is guaranteed. Good. But 6% is guaranteed, but no more guarantee. You will only get the minimum, that 1 million. Second one, you have a probability or a chance to earn more through a capital gain. Right? A capital gain. You are not going to lose any money in form of capital, but you have a chance to get more. So therefore, you might take the risk because, higher the risk, higher the gain kind of a situation. You might take the risk and even settle down for a lower rate of interest, 5%. Because you are thinking you might be able to get a capital gain here. And the capital gain can be 3%, for example. Here you are restricted to 6%. You can't get anything more, you can't get anything less. But on the other one, you have an opportunity of a capital gain. So generally, you can note it down. The coupon rate for convertible interest is generally less than the straight bond coupon rate. Because, as an investor, you think, okay, I get only 5%, but I have a good opportunity of making a big money in my capital gain. So I will settle down for a lower interest rate. So generally, the straight bond interest rates are generally higher than the convertible bond interest rate or the coupon rate. Is it clear?
Yeah, I think I'll also have to read a little bit into it as well.
Pardon?
I said I'll also have to read a little bit into it as well.
Yeah.
Just
just to get an idea, the concept is this. You are the lender. You are surely guaranteed 6% interest. That's all you will get. Nothing more, nothing less. Second one, you have an opportunity of getting something more if the share price goes up.
And the name of this is a straight line.
The first one is a straight bond. Straight bond.
And that's where you just get your percentage and that's it.
That's right. You get the percentage, that's all, and you get your capital back. Second one, you get your interest, but still you have another opportunity, a second chance to make something more to the capital gain. So you will think, hey, I can have a good chance of getting a good capital gain, which can be worth 3%. So I might as well settle down for 5% and go for it, rather than going for the 6%.
And what's that called?
That is called the convertible bond.
Convertible bond.
Yeah, convertible.
So the other one's a straight line.
Straight bond.
Yeah. Straight line bond, and then there's a convertible bond. Okay, I got you. Yeah. Okay.
So from the company's point of view, what you can see is another story, right? Now the company can borrow money in the straight bond at 6%. So they have to pay 6% every year. Company can borrow at a convertible bond, maybe less, maybe 5% or 4%. Now, the advantage for the company is normally when you start a project immediately, today, tomorrow, day after, the first few years of the project are very difficult because you are not making too much of money, right? So during that period, now imagine you take 1 million. 1 million. 6% interest means every year 60. 60,
Yep.
60, 60 you have to pay. Company is not making enough money, but you still have to pay 60,000, 60,000, 60,000. Now here, the advantage is you pay only 5%, 50,000. 50,000, 50,000. But maybe at the end of the period, they will, once they convert, they will get 1.2 million. Here, they will get only the 1 million. So from the company's point of view, initial cash outflow during the difficult period is much less. Here 60, here 50.
Yeah. Come on, just another question.
Okay.
You know about the convertible bond?
Okay.
If you so say if you basically have a lower interest because you're backing on getting the you're backing on getting the extra just in case if the share price goes up.
Yes.
What happens if it goes down?
Then you will not convert it. You will get your money back, but you will be a loser.
Okay.
You will be a loser because if you have gone for
lost on that.
Yeah, if you have gone for
lost on that interest.
That's a gamble.
Okay.
That's a gamble. If you have gone with the straight bond, you would have got the 60, but now you will get the 50 plus the 1 million because no capital gain.
Okay.
So that's a gamble, you will take it up. So that is why before you invest in a convertible debt, you might want to do a little bit of a calculation and see what the share price is going to be future. So you can we can work out, we will be doing something like that, trying to work out the future share price. So today's share price, shall we say 10, and they might say that the share price is going to grow up by 5% every year. The directors estimate, right? Maybe looking at the past, it is true, or maybe you remember we were talking about the growth rate. So looking at the past, it may be true. Whatever it is that we think, okay, it is going to go up at 5%. So 10 times 1.05 into power n. So let's assume the power factor is 5 years. It will tell us the share price in 5 years time. It's only a forecast. It's only a forecast. It will tell us the share price in 5 years time. So that will give you an indication what the share price is going to be in 5 years time. So the calculation I did, I get about 1276. 1276. So you as an investor would do a calculation like this and see if it goes at 5% for 5 years, the share price is 12.76. So the company is offering 10,000 shares. 10,000 shares company is offering. So you will estimate it to be 1,276,000. If you go with the straight bond, you will get your 1 million back. But here I have an opportunity of making 276,000 extra over a period of 5 years. So I will consider that one and then decide, okay, 6% here, but here I can go a little cheaper, maybe 5% because I have a 276,000 here. So I want to look at the 276,000 present value and also the present value of all the 5% and see whether it is equivalent to this 6%. So this is the kind of a calculation. I don't know. Yeah, we will be doing this one. I don't think whether we have done it in the F2 time, but we call yield to maturity. Yield to maturity. So this is actually the next syllabus, next area where when we are looking at the cost of debt and cost of equity, we'll be looking at this one. Right? But for the moment, what you have to know is basically the convertible bond coupon rate will be slightly cheaper than the straight bond coupon rate. But the lender generally will invest in convertible bond only if he thinks the share price is going to go up. If the share price is not going to go up or if the share price is not going to reach his expectation, he might not want to go for a convertible bond. So issuing convertible bonds is not a very easy proposition because the directors must be satisfied and the shareholders or the people should be quite impressed with the company when they say company can go at 5%. Yeah? Yeah. So that's what a convertible debt means. So it's like this picture shows, it's a climbing up of the share price. The share price will climb up. If the share price is going to drop, convertible bond is not going to work it out for you. Then we have this is what we call the venture capital funds. So generally, the venture capital funds are provided by a lot of venture capitalist companies. They are providing these venture capital funds, and this is the funds that is provided by mostly venture capitalists. They are generally provided for unlisted companies, the young companies, unquoted companies. They invest in equity, and they probably will sit 1 or 2 members in the board, will make the company grow, and later on they will have something called exit mechanism. Exit mechanism means after some time you want to get out of the company. So the venture capitalists will invest the money, will wait in the company for some time. Generally the exit mechanism is they will ask you to go listing. So once you go listing, the share price is there. So maybe they invested at $10, but now after doing all that, the share price is $15. They will sell it, keeping that $5 profit, they will vanish off. So that's normally what we call. So the venture capitalists to come, you must have an exit mechanism, because they don't want to remain there for permanently. They are not permanent shareholders. They are a kind of medium-term shareholder. They come to invest to make your company grow, and for them to make a profit, they want a share price. They will sell it at the share price, take money and go home. Right? So generally, normally they provide it as equity, but sometimes they might give it a part as equity, part as debt. They generally prefer low level of dividends because they are not really interested in the dividend. What they want is the company to do very well, share price to rise up. So the day that the company goes for listing, there's a big share price. They can sell the shares, make a big money and get out. That's what a venture capitalists do. So it's a good way to get money for a young company, unlisted company. And it brings some kind of some expert advice, because the venture capitalists are good people. They have a lot of experience. So they will put you on the board. They will put some of their members on the board. They will bring some financial discipline, everything, which is good for you. But the problem is, what is the problem? Generally we look at what we call a strategy. Strategy is a very long-term vision, isn't it? Long-term vision. But a venture capitalist is not going to take that kind of a long-term vision. He is going to look at for about 4 years or 5 years. Right? So his time horizon is just about 4 to 5 years. So they will block the directors from doing things which is going to be long term, because they want it to be 4 5 years, make big money, get out. Make big money, get out. That is what they want to do it. So in a way it's a good kind of finance, but it has its negative implications, because the company cannot be focused with a venture capitalist on long-term vision. They want it for a short period. So if the company is not going public, what is the exit mechanism? Company is not going public. Company doesn't want to go public, but the venture capitalists want to get out. What can they do?
Ask for their funds back.
Yeah, because they can't ask the shares funds back, because they have taken shares. So share monies are never returned, imagine. Share monies are never returned. Only thing is, they can ask the existing shareholders to buy their shares also.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
Company can't return the money back to, unless there's a share repurchase scheme. Company can't return the money, but they can say, okay, you buy our shares. So if the company is not going for a listing, then of course the problem is there is no market price. If you go for a listing, there's a market price. Now here no market price. So then you have to work out a share price, do some valuation, the dividend model or whatever the valuation, and then with that you must go and ask for money.
There will be times where people want to buy their shares because they're not worth anything.
Pardon?
Wouldn't there be issues where sometimes people wouldn't want to buy their shares back?
Yeah, right. Because if the company,
so they'll actually be stuck with the shares.
If the company is not doing well and the directors and the shareholders are not having money, they may not buy it. Then of course it's a dispute situation. you are stuck with it.
Yeah.
So the venture capitalists normally don't come and invest unless they are very sure that the company will go for, they sign agreement. They basically sign an agreement before they give the money, saying by 2020, the directors will take all possible actions to list out the company. And they also will put their two of the directors to ensure that it is done in that way. But having said all that, still there's a possibility directors not wanting to go for listing, one thing, and also that the shares are, the company has flopped. The company has flopped and there's no share price. You can't go for listing, right? No one will buy your shares. So in that case, of course, you lose your money. So venture capitalists generally, they are high risk takers. They come and invest, taking a risk. So they will do a lot of calculations and what we call due diligence. That is, before they invest, they will look at who are the directors. They will do a very good analysis of the project. They will do cash flows. They will look at the industry, everything, and then only they will decide to invest. If they make the wrong decision, bad luck for them. So generally they sign agreements, but I've seen some venture capitalists failing. Actually, I was working in a venture capital company some time back. So I was in some of the board of directors also. Not easy. Sometimes they go, but now the venture capitalists have grown up. Actually, I was there in the venture capital when venture capital started about 20 years back. At the initial stages, I saw a lot of people playing us out. They put some beautiful projects, everything, and then you give the money. After that, no project, nothing happening, no board, nothing happening, things can. But today, I think the venture capitalists are more smarter. They do a deep due diligence. They will want to know who the directors, what their backgrounds, all that kind of a thing, and only they will invest it. So that is the kind of funds that is available in the market, what we call venture capital in funds. Then the next kind of funds is business angels. Now, like in the heaven, we have some business angels. They are very much similar to the venture capitalists, but they generally invest in very small businesses. They are not the people who are really looking for big money. These people are the wealthy investors, right? The people who have all the money in the world. They have a lot of money, but they want to help. Genuinely, they want to help some person, some business people. So that's why they are called angels. They are somewhat like a product from heaven, right? They try to help you. They try to do something for you. That is what a business angel is all about. So there are some individuals, maybe with a lot of big money, they want to come and help me in my business. So like these donors, charitable donors, that kind of a people. Now, sincerely, I'm looking for a business, not a business angel, I'm looking for some kind of angel to look after my daughter's expenses, right? So there are people in the world who are having all the money. They don't want to earn any more money. They want to support another person. So if you can find this kind of a person, it's very good. They are basically helping the uneconomic businesses, right? So they want to help you, and they will provide equity finance, mostly to small businesses, for them to rise up. Clear?
Yep.
So the difference between business angels and the venture capitalists are real sharp. They are there to make big money out of you. Business angels are not really that. They are really genuinely trying to help you to come up, to promote all that kind of a situation. Then we have the government. Government can give many assistance. So they will, particularly in all over the world, most of the governments are supporting the small and medium enterprises, SMEs, right? So them to make profit. So they support them with various interest subsidy loans, government grants, different tax concessions, all sorts of things to make your small, medium enterprises to come up. So actually we are, myself and one of my friends, we have put up a proposal to Ghana, the country that is developing. They want to develop their small medium industry. entities. So they want support from some people who knows about how to run a business, how to tell them how to run a business, how to raise capital, how to prepare a financial statement and all that. So we have put up a proposal to this Ghanaian government to teach, to just like we are teaching to the students, to teach their business people online, like with this kind of slides about how to run a business, what the corporate governance is going to be, and what internal controls they should have, that kind of a thing. So we have put up a proposal, we are waiting for it. If that comes right, it's good. So the governments are supporting these people. So maybe they want to support in a particular area. They want to support in a particular territory where there's unemployment, where they want development to come. Maybe to develop investment and technology in the new industries of high-tech industries. Maybe industries which they are going to create jobs. Now, Ghana is a country where they have a lot of problems with the electricity failure, power failure. I have a lot of students. Unfortunately, those students, they can't do their online tuition. Most of the time, they don't have internet. Most of the time, they don't have power. So last week, a student, 4 days, no power. So poor boy, you can't do the work. So, so probably to create electricity generating projects. So that kind of thing, the government will give certain assistance in form of grants, in form of low interest loans, all that kind of a thing. So that is something which you can get it. So actually these are all the forms of debt that what we have discussed now. These are basically, I think I covered up every form of debt that a company can access, company can source it.
Yeah.
Have you got any time? Because I want to start equity. Can I start it, or you want to start it next time? What do you want?
How long would it take?
Yeah, it's a long session, but yeah, I can do it for about half an hour, or otherwise I can start it next week.
Could we start next week then?
Okay, right. Okay, yeah, because we can start it fresh on equity.
Yeah.
So we will look at some other questions on the debt next time before we start, and then we will go into this area.
Okay.
Yeah. So next week also, I think we have our normal schedule, Saturday and Sunday, I think.
Yeah. So Saturday is
Saturday we met 1 o'clock, no?
Yeah. So Saturday 1 o'clock and
yeah, Saturday 1 o'clock.
Sunday at
8:45. We can do it. Yes. Yes.
Yep.
So we will meet on Saturday and Sunday, Majid.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Speak to you later. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Sorry, come on.
Yeah.
Could you you know the chapters that you did
Bhaskar, no?
yesterday?
I'll do that one.
Yes, please.
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.